Okay. I'd like to open up the steering committee meeting for the Woodbury Route 6 corridor study. And we have a list of who's present. Just make sure that you've signed the attendance sheet so we can keep a running tally of who is here. So, okay, and so we'll make introductions. I'm Barbara Perkinson, First Selectman. Martin
Overton, resident.
Kathy Doyle, resident and member of the Shade Tree and Sidewalk Committee.
And Carol, resident and member of the Historic Commission.
George Black, the resident in the Wetlands Commission.
Mark Nielsen, Assistant Director of Naugatuck+Valley COG.
Ezra Blanchard, Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator at NBCOG.
My name is Casey Harden. I'm the project manager for the consultant team from AECOM.
My name Kevin Ellis, transportation engineer at MBCOG.
Yeah, Morgan, Fire Chief and Fire Marshal for the town of Woodbury.
Bruce Lamont, Director of Public Works, Town of Woodbury.
Will Grethel, planner.
Sorry.
President Sergeant.
If the AECOM team online also want to introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name is Evan Mormon. I'm a transportation planner, and I look forward to working on the project. Nice meeting you all.
Ashley?
Yeah. Hi, Ashley Bertom. I'm the traffic engineer that'll help Casey and Evan.
And Tavy?
Hi, I'm Tavi Chang, Civil Planning Engineer at AECOM.
And we have Aaron from DOT.
Yep, Aaron Swanson. I'm a transportation planner at DOT and DOT's PM for this project.
And is I see Anna Hickey as well. Brief introduction.
Hi, I'm on this corridor study committee, and I'm a Woodbury resident. I live on Main Street, and I'm interested in pedestrian safety.
Awesome. And I think that's a pretty good segue. We had maybe wanted, when we do the first, once we actually kind of get a whole group together like this, I'd love to just kind of hear some of the background from both the town and the COG on sort of their motivations for the project, some of the background and their experiences, and just kind of, use that as a way to start to build on our understanding of the corridor, which, we can get from site visits and research and whatnot. So maybe open it up to some of the town attendees, and then as well, the COG to kind of share some of their background on the origin stories of the project and, what the kind of underlying motivations were. You want to start, Mark? If you want to just go ahead. The icebreaker.
We got started on this a couple of years ago, if not even longer. Is the corridor, I don't have to tell you all that Main Street through Woodbury has been an issue for a lot of years. I remember, I don't know how many years ago, walking the corridor with Bill Butterly. He was very concerned about the traffic and pedestrian crossings and bicyclists and things like that. And it was that time that, we sort of really started looking at what we could sort of do to address these issues. Fast forward a few years, CONDOT offers the planning regions money to do planning studies on corridors. And we had talked to the town about actually doing a corridor study for this US Route 6, and they approved it. We put together, working with the town, a scope of work, and we initiated the solicitation for consultant services. And the committee selected AECOM as prime consultant, and again, the corridor is looking basically the entire length of US Route 6 through Woodbury, from Watertown all the way to Southbury.
Middlebury?
Middlebury.
Southbury.
What's on the west?
Southbury. You're right, Southbury.
Yeah. And that's a 6-7 mile corridor. So even though the project is sort of running that full length, we are really going to be focusing in on the critical areas, through the downtown center area. Part of that is that's where really, the concern for pedestrian safety is mostly critical. But we will be looking at the other segments to look at speed. see if there's anything that we can do to try to, reduce speeds through town. The department is in the works. Are they designing or about ready to go to design of a roundabout at Route 161 on Route 6, which will help flow through that intersection.
Is that, what's the status of that? I haven't heard anything.
I believe it's being planned and they're probably going to go out to design pretty soon.
Yeah, our understanding is that they're moving it forward through their project development process and that they're close to what they term initiating a design, which is, they sort of outline what the project they're moving forward is. And I believe they had their last public meeting was a little while ago now, maybe 18 months or so.
Yes, it was quite a while
And
ago.
it does take them quite a while to go from, there's a few steps required
From
to.
the concept to
Exactly.
project initiation and then into design.
Okay, because I was not aware of that.
Yeah. Once they initiate the project internally, first thing they do will be to reach out to the town and say, we're initiating a project, and they'll want to meet with the town and go through all the particulars. And like the design of something that may take 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But it's in the works.
Well, that's good to hear.
So we don't want to call it proposed, it's more planned
Right.
because it's in the works, but that should, help some of the traffic flow through the town. Again, like I said, the concentration is going to be in this area here. Some of the intersections are just a little bit difficult for pedestrians to manage. So hopefully through this project, and through all your help, we'll come up with some good solutions to, really change the feel of Route 6 from being just an arterial that goes through a town and it's intended to move traffic to a more what we like to call a complete street, which tries to look at travel by all different types of users, whether they're on foot or bicycle. And one of the things we have to sort of be aware of more recently is people who are on what you're referring to as micro mobility, which is like the electronic assisted devices, either e-scooters or an e-bike even, because those devices make it easier for a lot more people to actually use them, and a lot more people are actually taking advantage of that. So it's something else that will be make sure we take into consideration. So that's basically where we're at. Now is the sort of the genesis of the planning study, and we worked really hard with DOT because a lot of times we do these planning studies. You do a study, and then what happens with it? And
It's on the shelf.
yeah, and we really don't want that to happen here. So there's always kind of a disconnect between the COG and the department on, all right, we do these planning studies and then we want to initiate a project, and there's always this gap. With the department, well, you got to do some more engineering to really to see what the recommendations would be. We worked hard with the department to come up with a scope that is going to eliminate that gap. We want to create concepts, and I don't want to use the word preliminary engineering because it's not, but really good concepts that the department then can take and immediately go into a design phase. We want to eliminate that. We've come up with these ideas, and now what? Well, we have to do more work to come up. What we'd like to do is just go from this study. And AECOM is a very capable engineering design firm that can do both the planning and the engineering design that will be required. So that's our intent. We don't want to have that whatever we come up with just show. We want to be able to take this and say, look, work with the project concept development unit up at DOT and say, this is what we're looking for. Let's find the money to figure out which federal aid program or state program to actually build it. Now, we're not going to be able to build everything all at once, but we want to identify the key high priority projects and then start doing them as money becomes available. And again, that's sort of the issue with looking at a 6 mile corridor. It's like, we don't have the money to address everything in that 6 mile corridor in one project, but we we want to identify, this intersection is really critical. Let's build this. And then that ties into another intersection. So that's what we're going to get out of this is a good implementation plan that identifies priorities, identifies funding sources, and sort of identifies, the preferences of the town. This is going to be the first priority. Let's build this, then second, third, and go for it. And so that's where we are here today. We really want this to be a collaborative, very open process. So we want as much information and direction from this committee and the town at large. Because it's only by that interaction that we'll come up with something that you all want, and it's something that's doable. So this is the first meeting in as many meetings it'll take. And just for your information, I mean, if you want us to come to any board meeting, and planning and zoning, board of selectmen, whatever, we're available to come out and discuss this project at any time. At your, depending on what, you're representing all different groups, and then wetlands, historic, business. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. I got 2 out of the 3. But any of the groups, if if you want us, somebody gets what's going on with this study. If you want us to come, we're available. With that, I can answer any other questions, or if you want to add any your own thoughts.
Just ask a question. When you first made a presentation, when we first got started, we talked about if during the process we identified quick hits, that we would find a way to address those and not wait until the end of the project. Is that still part of the concept?
I think so. Yes, I agree with that.
Weren't specific about a quick hit, but things that didn't require a lot of engineering and things like that.
And the state does have a number of programs. Community connectivity is one where they do have money available. Not a lot of money, but to do some of these, like you said, quick hits. If you know that there's an intersection that can really benefit by just putting in better crosswalks or a different type of crosswalk, or narrowing the width of the road and putting in some curb extensions, maybe very easily done and designed. That could fit into that kind of a program, and yes, that could be some. We can fast track it. It might be the best word. Instead of waiting for right.
Thank you.
I personally, for the fire department, have a hardship with that, and I'm sure, I don't know what was taken into consideration, but when you're talking about bumping out curbs and bumping out crosswalks, the only area that's hydrant is on Main Street and Wood Lake. So our trucks, we have tanker trucks that have to be able to make these curves and corners, and traffic narrowing a roadway, especially on Route 6. People do not pull over in good areas. So when usually it's the worst spot they can pull over when there's a fire truck coming down the road, and they're usually side by side or across each other. So we're trying to make these swings into these Route 6, 47, all these places for something to be bumped out and be made smaller.
Okay.
The safety of the community on the outskirts of Main Street is going to be put at risk because we're not going to be able to make those swings.
And again, those are going to be factors to go into any kind of design. This is a state road, and we have to design it to the state standard and state design. So anytime, if we did anything like narrowing the road or reducing the curb radius, it has to meet the standards, which means you have to put a template down that says, okay, this kind of a vehicle, whether it's a fire truck, an 18-wheeler or whatever, can make that turn without
encroaching on the
really encroaching.
Wheelbases for our trucks, but even though the road may be able to design correctly, it's the traffic that's on the road that does not pull over properly, and they're always going to pull over at the worst spot so that we can't make the corners that we want. So it's not necessarily the road's problem, it's the amount of traffic and the amount of people that don't understand how.
And that's always a difficult thing because you're getting into driver behavior. And that's, that's something we can look at and try to address. How can you, and again, I guess that's sort of the intent of this is, let's not just look at a strict engineering, but, let's look at some driver behavior. Adherence to speed limits is actually another, you can put it, you're in a congested area, you're in an area that has pedestrians. You want to have reduced speed to, maybe 30 miles an hour. Do people actually drive that? Not necessarily. So it becomes a driver behavior, and then we'll look at, what can we do, to maybe encourage people to recognize that they're in a more, and when I say congested, I mean congested in terms of all different type of activity, drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians, the whole, everything. So that they're at least aware they're, somebody driving isn't the road isn't just made for them. So, but yeah, I would definitely, and again, your input is valuable in terms of, the insights of, this is what we find when we're trying to respond to an emergency. And, it's good to know and try to figure out how best we can, accommodate your needs as well as, needs of other, because we don't want to, solve a problem here and just worsen something somewhere else. So
you flagged that for the location of that hydrant you mentioned.
Well, no, we only have hydrants, I mean.
Oh,
we
you
have
only,
54.
okay, got it,
So
got it.
like we have.
It's not, it's just one.
Right, so for us to access the other areas in town, we have to bring those extended length vehicles down Main Street to get to where we're going. So to make turns, if we bump something out, now we have to go into the other lane, but of course, cars are gonna have stopped there, there's cars that are gonna, and we can't make the turns if we're making intersections smaller.
Right.
So those are just things we need to think about.
and be aware of, yes. And like I said, that's, we don't want to do something and we think, oh, great, we're doing this wonderful thing about doing this. And then after it's put in, you come back and say, well, we can't do this. And you're running over the curbs or, it's, yes. So yeah, we'll definitely be aware of those.
Any other folks wanted to kind of share something here at the beginning, or we can kind of move on into the presentation?
Okay. And with that, again, your input is valuable and we welcome it at any time. You have contact information on your thing. So, feel free to reach out either to myself, Rich Donovan at the COG, and, Casey at AECom.
Our question. There a component in there that deals with also the utilities within the road?
Oh, I mean, that.
Sure, those get replaced, don't get replaced, fixed. I see things happening to our sidewalks that are brand new. Someone comes in, put the line in, and they put back asphalt.
I mean, it's part of the scope, and correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, but the first task is sort of, okay, what is out there? Trying to figure out everything that's out there that might be impacted by any kind of action that we take on improvements. Utilities are a big part of it, either overhead and underground, because anytime you have an underground utility, if you reduce some of the road, you don't want to impact that facility. We'll probably rely on the town to let us know of plans for future connections or future replacements, because anytime that we do a project, a construction project, one of the first things they want to know, are you going to be digging this thing up in a year or two? Because the last thing we want to do is to put new pavement down and then have Eversource come back and dig up the road with something. So that's going to be, we're going to rely on the town to provide us with some information on that. You're probably not going to be doing utility coordination during the planning phase.
No, but we might account for, when we're doing like cost estimates, we would account for if the curb line is, either being widened or narrowed, maybe we'd have to put in an additional line of catch basins to connect to the existing network. We would be looking for any locations where if there's, some widening that impacts the utility pole, we would try to capture that in some of the cost estimates.
But again, it's definitely something we'll be aware of. And the scope of work is a guide. It gets pretty specific in a lot of spots. But as we're going through this, if there's something that we found that, oh, wait, we sort of forgot this, doesn't mean that we won't.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's not like, well, sorry, we didn't include that, so we're out of luck. No, we will consider whether, we adjust the scope to sort of say, okay, maybe we'll spend less time on this task because this one turned out to be a little bit more important or something we left out. So we do have that flexibility.
Can I ask a question both of COG and the DOT planner? What's the latest traffic count information you've got?
I'm not sure what the latest is. I know actually DOT just did Route 6 probably within the last 2 years, but it's
I mean, that's recent, 2 years is good.
yeah,
right?
but that's we're just going to use that as sort of something we can compare to. Because one of the first things we'll do is we're going to put out new counters. I shouldn't say new counters, but we're going to put counters out to get new updated counts. The COG has, Kevin, how many radar counters? Four. So we have radar counters that we'll put out at various locations throughout the corridor. We also have access to a transportation analytics software platform called Streetlight. What they do is they collect cell phone information and then manipulate it to come up with information. We're going to use that to get turning movement patterns up and down the entire corridor. So instead of having to go out and actually sit there and say, oh, this car's turning left, this one's right, this will give us an idea of how people are turning, in which direction, things like that. The streetlight data, I think I forget what the percentage is. It's based on a sample. I mean, it's obviously it's not 100%, but it actually is fairly good information to give us an idea of what's going on. And if we find an area that we really want to focus in on because of some of the patterns we're seeing, we'll actually go out there and do the count and verify. So that's one of the first things we're going to do is I think we've already pulled down the current DOT data.
Yeah, from spring 2023.
Okay, so I thought it was pretty recent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really recent.
Yeah. And the other thing is we'll just compare to see how those counts compare to previous counts. Because during the COVID years, traffic patterns changed. Commuting patterns changed a little bit. So we're going to look at that just to see, okay, has traffic flow sort of gotten back to what we call normal, or have things sort of changed that now this is the normal, where a peak hour is a little bit longer than it used to be. We're finding less traffic during the 7 to 8 time period in the morning, but it's now it's been spread out to
more trips midday. People are working from home and can run out and do a trip midday, and even some higher trip totals in the evening peaks where people are maybe less linking trips because they're not coming home from work and stopping at 3 places. They're running out individually. So it's
and that's one of the trends we've been finding is with a lot of people working from home, you think, oh, okay, traffic is going down, but just because people are working from home doesn't mean they're going out and traveling somewhere. So in some ways, the traffic hasn't gone down a whole lot, but like Casey said, the pattern has changed, and when they're making that trip is changing. So yeah, we're going to look at all that, and we'll get fresh data.
Aerial data up more current than what we have. We go 2019.
What was the question?
For the aerial.
Oh, aerials. I don't know the aerials.
I'll check CT Eco. It'd be whatever we had, whenever that's usually our latest and greatest source.
I thought
Eco was getting around this year at some point.
Yeah, I thought it was, I thought they were getting it somewhere because we'll look into that. We'll try to dig out the latest aerial photos.
So as Mark alluded to, the study area, is set to the town's kind of whole span of Route 6. And again, you are far from being alone in Connecticut for having a major state arterial roadway, sort of as your main street. And to Mark's point about kind of grouping recommendations, given the length of the corridor, we might point you to, we worked together on a study in Oxford that looked at their Main Street and focused on identifying, different segments for a multi-use path along Route 67. And they, kind of approached it from the same problem. They have Route 67, runs through the core of their town. I think even your problem is even more acute, given the level of commercial activity where you would like to see and like to think that people could park once and kind of walk to different places. I know from my own experience doing the site visit we did when we were looking at the project at the RRFB that, I love seeing those put in. I hated standing there watching some poor person kind of scurry across the road after they did it because people weren't slowing down for them. And it really did, when I look at this map of the study area and kind of recognizing these shaded areas are the historic core, the two historic districts, it really strikes me that the importance for transitioning from the more rural, open, frankly, higher speed sections outside of the core into the more developed areas. We're not really, we don't really have that now, kind of entering the core from both sides are really highly automotive uses. There's like a repair shop, big wide parking lots, big open curb cuts. And that doesn't really give anyone that sense as I'm driving into this community, gee, I'm entering a different context. I should slow down. So it's kind of looking at things like that where we could kind of identify ways to do that. I think it's going to be a really important part of what we come up with. To your kind of previous points, there was an initial PAC meeting before we were on board last summer. Where I think you guys talked a little bit more about the scope, expected outcomes, and timeline. And I just wanted to kind of bring those goals kind of back out, right? So transportation safety and connectivity in the central core, and the importance of doing all that in the context of benefiting the town's economy, understanding what the town's vision for whether it's growth, whether it's staying the same, how transportation can kind of help be a positive factor in that. And then finally, we recognize there's two independent historic districts. We made a point to bring onto our team a firm called AHS that is the department's on-call statewide for historic resource coordination. So we want them to help us at this early stage understand these two historic districts, what pieces of the Route 6 corridor and the transportation facility are part of that, how it contributes, so that we can understand as we develop improvements that we're doing things that are hopefully honoring the history of the corridor while also providing these important safety improvements. So if that, is it certain types of aesthetic treatments? Is it certain types of uses? So I'm interested in knowing that we're here today, if you have anything sort of particular that you would want to share with us about sort of how the historic districts relate to Route 6 and how, if at all, transportation is related to the historic districts, or are the historic districts mostly about the buildings and those types of resources?
Well, they certainly are about buildings, and we want, we see this as a walking town where people, several years ago, we set up where you could do a self-guided walking tour. And frankly, I live on Mountain Road right off of Main Street, and we are not a good walking town, as we both know. We're probably two of the most frequent walkers here, and people do not slow down. People do not stop when we cross the street. I can stand there waving to people as they pass by, and probably and I cross at our best crosswalk, which is the one right in front of Manzi's real estate office there. And I cross that 4 times a day. And I would say that on average, particularly coming from the north, coming from Watertown, and I don't know if people can't see me in the light, because coming from the south, they are more likely to stop. But I would guess that, on average, 5 cars pass before they stop there. So and because of the way our sidewalk is, and because it's difficult to cross the street, it's not a good town, a walking town, which is what those of us on the Historic Commission wish for people to do, is to be able to come to our town and be able to walk the street and go to the different shops. And it's not really conducive to that right now.
Now, with your issue of crossing, have you noticed it getting better at all? Because because I mean, the department, you know, they're doing watch for me types of commercials and advertising, and but you really haven't seen those
It
as sort of
got
be.
slightly better when we had that thing in the middle of the road with the light that flashed. It was better then.
That'll come back in the spring.
When that went away,
Yeah,
I family bad actually, 'cause I walk a lot on the Main Street there, and that intersection. And then with one about a month ago, I was there and clicked the button and was blinking. I walked out quarter into the street with my hand up. My car still went by.
And that's what we want to try to address. And, you know, I think that's, you know, and that does get to driver behavior, and, you know, how can we do things to really, you know, hammer home the need to, you know, slow down, to stop for a pedestrian and a crosswalk. And
what I find very interesting is that the crosswalk at Spring Street, which I think people don't even know it's there. And so people stop for me there quicker than they do at the more visible one.
Yeah.
Now, I can't explain that.
Well, the other one is a weird intersection because it's an intersection that's not an intersection. You got one road coming in, you got Mountain Road coming in on an angle just above it, and then the crosswalk. It's also coming down a curve where you're going downhill and going uphill. So there's a lot of dynamic things going on there.
And I'm surprised the Mountain Road intersection, they haven't wanted to make, instead of having that where everybody tries to race out because they will cut across Mountain Road, so they don't have to come down Main Street, making that a dead end, so people can't come out on Main Street there.
Well, they talked about that 15 years ago, making that a dead end and having a little park there, which I thought was like crazy idea, but you know,
It's just that
making it one
intersection.
way or.
Because when you're looking, you're coming up, you're watching the Judson Avenue and you're trying to see people scoot out in front of you there, and then you have people that are halfway in the road trying to come out of Mountain Road, so that whole intersection is, your eyes are on other things, not the pedestrian crosswalk right beyond it.
And I do have to say, without having any kind of a thing to identify how many people are traveling, just my own personal experience from living there for 25 years and having to pull out a mountain road, that traffic has greatly increased, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. And when you talk about the busy time of day, where it used to be, from 5 to 6 o'clock, it's, you know, everybody's coming home from work. Now it's from 3:30 to about 6:30.
yeah, and that
It really has
yeah.
lengthened and it stays really busy, and I can wait a long time to pull out of Mountain Road.
And you don't notice the traffic in the morning when they
I
to
do.
drop the kids off at the
Oh,
high
yeah,
school,
but
and
it's
rather than come
short.
down to Main Street by Middle Road Turnpike, they scooted up across Mountain Road to beat all the Main Street traffic.
Yes, yeah, but it doesn't last this long.
They're going to.
And they're growing, well, they go faster because they're late for school. and They fly up the hill.
And if you're on that subject, 2 points that I've noticed, for example, on these crosswalk lights, A, out of 1 to 10 being of effectiveness, they're about a 4 because they're so faint. They should be a heck of a lot brighter. And B, if things are so far off the road, your eyesight is not focusing, but you know, off the road, it's what's in front of you on the edge. And they're off out in the woods, as far as I'm concerned, and I just don't notice them as much, even though I'm aware of them, you know.
Are you, when you talk about lights, are you talking about the RRFBs, like that are placed? Yeah.
Light things, yeah.
Way too far.
I mean, if you, a good example is coming up the hill in Roxbury on that shortcut, they've got these beautiful LED lights on the signs. Those things stand right out like a light bulb. These things, you never notice them when they're on half the time, especially on a bright sunny day. You know, I mean, they're not effective. And that technology's been out there for quite a long time. I've noticed different states. So,
Yeah, I always find the RFPs are a little bit more effective at night because they do stand out. And you know, I've seen them in some places where you are in the middle of the day and it's like, yeah, they're you know, they're intended to be bright, but you know, when they bright out, they lose their effectiveness.
they're not in my frame of
Yeah.
vision either. So,
Do you know if anyone's really considered a signal warrant at Mountain Road at all? Down the
traffic
years?
signal?
Yeah, so there's a whole,
Tried in front of the supermarket for years and consistently over the years been told no. They've reached out by the owners. Have reached out multiple times over the past 20 years.
To the state.
Yeah. They said just there wasn't more than enough traffic was the answer.
Yeah.
So.
and I wonder, I mean, here at Mountain Road, we get the combination of, so traffic volume, there's certain thresholds that they look for, but there's other factors that can kind of sway you as well. And in this case, we're dealing with, you know, really poor geometrics. You guys talked about it, craning your neck to look. There's some vertical geometry on Route 6 itself that makes it hard to see. Plus, you know, I think part of what happens here too is, in particular for the southbound drivers, this is sort of your first, you're not really in downtown yet. You're not really in the core yet. So people are kind of flying in from the northern part of town. And the northbound drivers are like, oh, now we're out of town. We're going to start to accelerate. So it's sort of a unique location from a whole different set of aspects. And but I agree that this is certainly, and I believe there was a pretty serious pedestrian injury by someone hit in that crosswalk. And again, just yeah, my experience just trying to do it, you see that it's not really being followed in the way it's supposed to. So that's all really good feedback. Thank you. I'll go back to the presentation.
Consistency would help too. If you're gonna have a crosswalk with one of those signs in the center of the street, promote all of them. Yeah. Why not just one? Why one? But you know, I mean, just Great Barrington, Mass is a good example. They've
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Those aren't permanent installations. That's sort of the problem, right?
The winter.
It's tough on the plows.
Well, no, it's not just that, but I think they have to be taken up at night.
No, we just had to do a state permit for those.
Okay, you can keep them out there 24/7? Okay.
We just took them down.
Okay, yeah, because I've noticed them in a lot of spots where somebody is pulling them back in at 6 o'clock or something like that. And I wasn't sure if that was part of the permit. But yeah, I mean, if they can, you know, I don't know if people want to leave them out there overnight in case, you know, become more of a something you can run into because it's at night, you might not be able to see it. But personally, I don't like them because again, I'm just wondering if they send the wrong message that people will see them, say, oh, okay, I only have to stop when I see this sign in the center of the road. Where if I don't see it, oh, well, I don't have to stop. Whereas state law says you're required to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk, whether or not there's that, you know, sandwich board sign in the middle or not. So I just wonder if it sends the wrong message when you have it. I understand that, you know, having that additional
warning,
yeah. So
it's hard because that's, again, goes back to our behavior too. Yeah, because we're seeing the whole erosion of driving. Might turn on red and all that kind of stuff. People turn right on red, whether it's has a sign or, you know, there's places that has a sign, no turn on right. They don't see that.
Yeah.
They go anyway. They don't even stop anymore.
So you're supposed to stop it.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I think that's why we didn't put them on all of them.
Yeah.
To try to not make it like all the same. So like we try to put it in busier ones, make people.
Reinforce that.
Yeah. As opposed to like if you just put them all, then people are just like, oh, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's sort of the problem with, you know, some towns like to put stop signs places because then you have too many or not where they belong. They start disrespecting them. Yeah.
The signs that Earl was talking about in Roxbury with the lights embedded in them. I'm curious as to whether the state has sanctioned that on state roads
Where is it?
anywhere. That's a town road, isn't it, in Roxbury? Yeah. Has the state put these in anyway?
I don't know.
No, Weller's Bridge, the shortcut coming up the hill.
Yeah, yeah.
The steep hill. The shortcut in Roxbury.
Yeah, it's well.
Last Patrick.
I think they may be onto something with the state, maybe not. Although with the new release of the MUTCD, they got a lot more progressive. So the MUTCD is you may know of it. It's the federal
Manual on uniform traffic control devices.
nailed it. And so they just and it hadn't been updated in over a decade, and they included a lot more progressive, I call it tactical urbanism type of designs. And it's possible that it may not have been previously been put on state roads because it previously wasn't approved. But my understanding is that this should open some new doors.
I'd like to suggest that in terms of the like quick fixes, things that could be done, and give credit to this group. Oh, thanks for that. Is that if you could look at that as being something that, you know, is totally integral to what the whole study is trying to accomplish. If that is something that can be done, you need to plan it, design it, build it, and maintain it. Someone has got to be identified to do all those things.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, and make that sort of one of our early action items, kind of document the signing. And
I think that, I mean, I use that road. I also use Mountain Road. And it certainly gets my attention, which I think is the consensus of the room, that if you can't see it, or you can't see early enough, or you don't see a reason to slow down or a reason to stop, whatever your rationale is for not slowing down and stopping, I think the lights get your attention. If you're going to drive through that, you deserve to get a ticket. Because now it's very obvious that there's a reason here to slow down.
I've even seen traffic signs now recently. What was it? Instead of white background with black lettering, it's now the Dayglow yellow with the black lettering with wording on it. Somewhere recently around here.
In certain things, because the colors on the sign
Right.
all have different meanings.
Well, this was like a speed limit sign, and it was just.
Yeah, that has to be
yellow
black.
with
In
black
Connecticut, it's
lettering.
got to be black on white.
Somebody in Connecticut's got them with green now, Dayglow.
On a town road, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah, boy, that stands out.
yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah. Cool.
Maybe that's part of your new thing. I don't know, but just saying that stands out really nice now.
No, that's all been really helpful. I wanted to just keep our agenda moving, and so I think what I'm hearing is it seems like those goals and objectives still hold true. I think, you know.
Can you put the slide up?
Yeah.
Because I want to throw something out early on in this process that a lot of people for a lot of time have considered whether there was enough support for relocating the overhead utilities to underground. I mean, along with what you said, that you don't want to pave the road, right, and then come along and then move the utilities back. I've been personally involved in relocating overhead utilities underground as an engineer, and it's labor intensive, it's dollar intensive, it's political will intensive, and it's hard to do. And if you can get it done in 10 years, you do well. But I would like to see whether there's a consensus anywhere, or I'm the only one sitting here who wants to do this, to actually add that to the draft goals. Because number 3, I think that first word shouldn't be maintain. I think that should be enhance and improve.
Regardless of the utilities, I like your suggestion to pivot to enhance and improve. And also in 2, it would point to the improving the look and feel of the community.
Identity.
That's the comment we can factor that into our high level. One of the first couple steps we usually do is to identify a few folks for some one-on-one meetings, recognizing that as valuable the input we get in these group settings. Sometimes you can get even more info from kind of getting some folks one-on-one, and you know, that could be a balance of a mix of people from this the PAC committee itself, but also we'd like to kind of reach out and kind of understand, you know, there's some unique Oftentimes, getting to the school system, understanding, some of their perspective on what's important to them from either the busing or, where they do have folks that walk to school, business owners. And then, with the, proliferation of religious institutions, it might make sense to kind of talk to them about, they have any really specific needs on a Sunday morning that, study recommendations could help address. So I think we have sort of a rough bulletized list here. What we would propose to do is circulate something perhaps to this committee. And if you guys wanted to kind of weigh in on it, we did kind of set a number in our scope. So what we might do is sort of, give you a number and you can kind of help us understand what you think the, best sources of information are.
One of the groups that I think is missing from here, and maybe it's because their building sits on the top of the hill, are the seniors. We have a lot of seniors in town who want to walk. Our sidewalks aren't always as friendly as they need to be. Some other are concerned about crossing the street. So speaking with representation from the senior staff or their commission, I think would be very beneficial and helpful, because all of our town parks, if my math is okay, are within a quarter of a mile from Main Street. And that's pretty close for a lot of them who are still quite healthy and like to put in walks or riding bikes. So I think that's another key group for here.
Comment. And even I think when we consider public meeting sites, important to consider access to them as well. I've even done studies that have done a duplicate meeting if there was interest at a senior center. So something for us to consider as we move forward. Thank you for that. That's helpful. Another kind of early activity we're going to be doing is what's called a road safety audit. And the idea for these is to get our technical team out with probably some folks from this committee and kind of walk parts of the corridor and take the desktop research that sure we can do and kind of understand, but to kind of add a level of real life to it, right? We're actually kind of walking around, you get a good character. So we wanted to kind of let you guys know that was going to be happening, and that we sort of tentatively looking at probably late February, early March. It would be a little brisk, but not quite as bad as right now. And essentially we'll be extending an invite probably to all committee members who'd like to participate. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a forum if you wanted to ask about any questions associated with that, or just look for the invite in the future.
That gets to your concern about that one intersection where you have a problem, crossing.
Yeah.
That's the intent of an RSA, is actually go out there and we'll get Casey, AECOM's engineers out there and actually observe, as it's going on, and get a sense of, what's happening, what are the problems. They'll look at the location of those RRFBs and say, okay, yeah, this is
sight
lines are not good, they're not visible. And that's the intent of the RSA, is really get out there in the field. And the idea is to go with a group. So it's not just Casey and myself, two sort of outsiders just walking around. No, we want people from the town to really give their. This is again an opportunity to give input to say, no, this is the problem. This is what we see, and this is what we feel is needed. And obviously, public safety. We want you to be participants as well, because your insights are invaluable as well. So we'll do it when you're available, or somebody from your office is available to participate.
Yep. Because where you have sidewalk end, like you want people on one side of the road, but if you want to walk down from, say, the Canfield Corners intersection, you get to the liquor store. If you want to walk into Northwood LLC, to the health food store, to San Remo's, the garden, there's no sidewalk on either side. But then you walk down, and if you think people are going to walk to Canfield to get into the hair salon or the Shell station, they're not going to walk to Canfield to the sidewalk and then walk back where there's no sidewalk. So we have a lot of spots in town where you're asking people to be on one side of the road, but where they need to go is on the other side of the road, but there's no safe way for them to continue walking, so they walk. And we've had people get hit, actually, right in front of the Shell station. So I'm just saying, we're gonna have sidewalks, let's be consistent. And
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah, we
don't have that consistency.
And again, I think that's one of the big things we're gonna be looking at is those gaps in the sidewalk network. And as,
The bank, all those good hills, you're asking people to cross and then walk in the roadway to get to them, which makes no sense.
and again, that could be one of those immediate action type of things where you identify, where there are gaps in the sidewalks and, try to plan out how to connect and, we'll say, if we are going to recommend new sidewalks, they have to meet, again, current standards, which is, I think it's at least 5 feet now.
Ideally 6, but yeah, 5 plus.
And if there's a utility pole, you have to have enough space, from the utility.
Get a wheelchair.
So it's, some of the sidewalks you may have in town may not meet that standard anymore. And if we start touching anything, we gotta touch the whole thing. Curb ramps, where sidewalk meets the road, we have to put that ramp in that meets, again, the ADA requirement. That's a requirement. If you do any work that might touch it, you have to bring it up to standard. So,
Can I ask a question about the RSA? Going from 6 and 64 up to 6 and 317. The only place you can cross the street where there is a crosswalk is up at 6 and 317. That's a long haul. So my question is, I know when you did the preliminary scope of the project, there were certain intersections you were going to be keying in on, but one of them wasn't Hollow Road. A lot of us step off the sidewalk to cut across to Hollow Road, one, to get to the deli in the area there, but 2, to walk down to the park that's just right down that road. So does the RSA, when you meet with us and we're going out to walk, help identify where some of those places
Yes.
might be?
yes.
Absolutely, and I've been calling it one RSA. We actually did scope multiple. So also
okay.
acknowledging the fact that it's a relatively long corridor, we would likely set them up in specific geographic areas in order to focus on kind of 1 or 2 specific areas and not try to
Do
walk
5
over
miles
to-
in one day.
walk over to- yeah, right. Corridor trail style. And then the other piece that's important to us to kind of get some early information on is both any planned like infrastructure projects, so we got the rendering here. This is from the DOT's roundabout public meeting about 18 months ago. We flagged a few things that we noticed in your town, like capital improvement plan. But beyond this, we're also interested from a development perspective. Are there new or in the works potential trip generators coming in that we should be accounting for? This is sort of the part where we try to make sure that we don't get someone at a public meeting. Did you think about the new Cumberland Farms going in over there? That type.
Yeah, so when you say trip generators, what do you mean? Like as like a potential trip generator?
Well, I mean, there's sort of the state traffic commission does have a threshold. I'm thinking of things generally that are even less than that. Sort of anything that is coming before planning and zoning, whether it's commercial or residential. If it's anything of any density, we're interested so that we can. I think part of it is like it's important that it get in the numbers and that we're looking at it from a turning movement count perspective. But it's also, I think, more important that we can, when we're going to the public, we can communicate an understanding that we do have a thorough kind of grasp of what the plans are, just so that you can get put on your heels pretty quickly with, hey, didn't you know such and such was happening?
And this sort of gets actually back to one of the first questions about traffic counts, because we'll do existing counts, but we want to know and project what it's going to be like in 5 years when some of these improvements may actually be built. Knowing any kind of development plans that the town has, will feed into those projections. You're going to look probably a little bit beyond the town itself.
Oh yeah, just down, probably across the line at Southbury and even on the. I don't think there'll be all that much on the northern side, but Southbury might be more of a place that.
So we'll look at possible development that may not be in the town, but could impact it because people are driving through. And those are kinds of things we may not have much influence on, changing, but we need to be aware of them so we can, account for.
Well, I dealt with that before. The Corneo, I can do with those is that obviously ones that are approved for cold steel facilities.
Yeah.
Right? And there's the ones that talked about for years and you never know when they're coming and then they change. It's those that become more difficult, I think, because how much of that, if you account for it, then skews, the baseline or whatever you're looking at. That's what I get worried about.
So the official line would be, in the actual traffic modeling, we would only look at approved developments. It's good to know for some back of the napkin so that, when we, if there are parcels that, like you said, there's been history that a lot of people in the town maybe know might be developed, might not be. Those are maybe just good for us to know. Because to your point, you're really just supposed to include the approved developments in the future traffic growth, but it's also good context to understand where other options.
The other factor, which obviously you're gonna have these traffic based on what happened, right? And you want to look at what's future being going to be built, but there are vacancies.
Yeah.
And those vacancies are not generating traffic like they used to. How does that get factored in? So we do have a center that's pretty substantial vacant, but it's in a slow process of being redeveloped.
That's an interesting question. So certainly the vacancy factors into the existing volumes, right, that are actually happening. But the way the travel demand modeling works, they rely on census-based, like employment and population for each little TAZ. We're going to be coordinating with DOT using their statewide model. It's not particularly granular along the corridor, so it's going to take some refinement. So that's actually good to know and something that we can kind of talk to them about. And if once we get there, it's probably 2 to 4 months out. If you had any ballpark guesstimates of sort of percent of square footage maybe that is occupied now versus you reasonably hope would be in 5 to 10 years, that would be good to know, because we can kind of, the calibration process is part science, part art, and that would fit into the part art part.
Again, more insight we can get from you and the town, the better. Because as Casey's saying, they're going to do this traffic modeling, and if they don't understand that there is some vacant parcels that are likely to be filled in 3 to 5 years, they're going to underestimate that.
I'm not even talking about being parcels, I'm talking about vacant buildings.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah, vacant
So,
buildings. Yeah,
right,
sorry.
Normal times it's full and the traffic stream is going, but when you're doing the traffic analysis, how the
Right.
building them.
But again, any insights that you can provide us and AECOM, the better.
Right, because to that point about the traffic modeling being a little bit art, I mean, it's helpful to know what we think the answer should be.
Go back to the last.
Oh, sure.
Since 18 months ago, we had this online Zoom with the state going 2 options.
Yep.
And now we're hearing they're going to go with one of them, obviously. A lot of the old timers who were not partaking in this and they're not engineers have been doing a lot of hearsay indicating that the sight line is jeopardized going northbound this way. You can't see what's coming down this way. That's what's possibly causing some of these issues. They say, and again, this is all hearsay, the state supposedly owns a chunk of land here on this side of the road. The trees have grown in these areas, and all they had to do was cut them back a little in the interim, and maybe that would help. And they were not partaking apparently in any of these discussions. So I'm just telling you, heads up. There's been a lot of discussion about why can't they do a little tree trimming.
That was option, the other option.
Well, that was just, they just said just trim it for now, and then
Well, yeah,
they're not
the
saying,
other-
they're
the
not
other
talking about the road stuff.
option what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Even with that improvement, most views that not solved.
Yeah, I mean, they were,
It
Even
didn't
the-
start the
even the
speed
broad-
problem.
The speed and the broadness of that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
multiple-
then it was
Really
just,
should go up the road about another half mile and deal with the corner where
Oh,
we have
God,
more
yeah.
accidents.
it's another one. And that's on our side of the line, yeah, that's right.
I turned around on that road. I was doing my site visit, and I regretted that decision, yeah. I made it.
And again, highlight that so we know, we can take a look at it.
And a question to Aaron on the line as well. I mean, what would it be worth, us maybe trying to ask for just a briefing on where that stands so that we can update both this committee and when we go to the public, we
Oh,
can
I
we
think
can speak
definitely,
more
yes.
intelligently.
And did hop off if you're waiting for.
Oh, okay. But no, we should reach out to DOT. Is that still in PDU or is that?
That's my understanding, yeah. And the next trigger would be when it does go to design and maybe it probably. goes
Because I could
somewhere
reach
else.
out to Marissa.
Okay,
directly.
that would be great. So, wanted to, be respectful of everyone's time, noticing it is a little after 2 already. So we talked about scheduling the RSA, so that'll come soon. We'll follow up and distribute a list of stakeholders for this group to kind of opine and comment on. We are actively analyzing some of the traffic volumes and other existing conditions. That leads to a deliverable of a tech memo, and that would be kind of the primary meat and potatoes of our first public information meeting, which we have sort of kind of outlined for this spring. We would probably look to have that before we really get into the summer vacation period. So we'll, I think, be following up quickly. And what we would do typically with a committee like this is have a meeting probably 2 to 4 weeks before the public meeting, essentially present almost a dry run of the meeting content, give you folks the opportunity to opine, add any of your additional insights, and we would kind of package that together into the public meeting presentation. And then we kind of move forward through the summer, develop some concepts, bring those back to this group and the public. We probably work with you 1 or 2 times during that process to kind of advance the level of detail and kind of find where we're hitting the mark, where we need to make some changes, and then roll those out to the public, get their opinion and comment, and then develop that implementation plan and kind of final report over next winter. So we're seeing about a year process, but that's sort of from December-ish when we really got started. Anything to add? Any questions?
All this is gonna be.
We're maintaining the website at NVCog. AECom is providing some of the content, and we'll be updating it. I should say Desiree's updating it. But and from the town, if you either want to just provide a link to our website from yours, you can always do that. But we'll try to be, keep it updated. We'll post any kind of meetings or results of, any of the tasks. We'll have a little blurb about this meeting, through our website and other social media. So, this will be,
And always
Blast it out.
interested in any mailing lists or ways to kind of, when we are scheduling our public meeting, to get the message out. We do want as much attendance as we can get. I'm interested. I don't know if how engaged you typically find the community. I imagine probably pretty engaged, but I can be hit or miss. I know, depending on the time of year and type of meeting. And
we definitely want to get earlier as opposed to later. The last thing we want is to be all wrapping up and then somebody coming out and say, "Oh, you forgot about this." It's like, so we want to, really reach out very early.
Well, I think here there's a good representation of most of the boards and commissions. Historic, inland wetlands, zoning is here. And the departments, our town planner and so on, public works, fire department. I think through those people will get the word out. They can post it on their own website. They can mention at meetings. We could pass out information. They could keep their members abreast of what's going on.
And as I said, if your commission or board wants a presentation directly from us, we're open to that. You know,
And
so.
who shall we contact?
Either myself or Rich Donovan, who's sort of the project manager. Yeah, Will has all the contact information for Rich and myself.
I think some of that might be on the website too.
And we could get a link, and we put a link up
Yeah,
there.
we'll get Robin, she'll put it right up.
Okay. And we will keep it on the homepage.
Yeah, Robin will put it on the right column.
Curious, just with all the discussion about driver behavior, when you've engaged with the public recently, now a lot of this driver behavior discussion's picked up a lot since COVID. and
It's always somebody
crash
else.
But it's, you know, has there been any engagement from the public on that, or is it everyone, you know, everyone else is the problem, you know, and I'm the world's greatest driver, just everyone else does type of thing? Or do you get any sense that there's a understanding that it's everyone is using the road?
Come and stand at a road.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Know how the behavior is.
Do not cross state across the road.
We're a main corridor.
Sure, yeah.
Out of town.
Yeah.
All day long.
Just yesterday, I was leaving work, made a right-hand turn out of here because I don't like making a left without the light. But I go down and turned left, or was putting my signal on, turned left onto Judson Avenue, and some guy behind me blasted his horn at me. I mean, he had plenty of room to go around me, but I don't understand why I got, you know, blown with the horn.
Because you went on two wheels as you're.
I guess.
Great place. Go down to make the turn.
Yeah.
On a novel line.
And as far as people stopping, when you're at a
Crosswalk,
crosswalk,
yeah.
Oh,
and I wave to the people
You do
as they're
this.
going by me, and they just wave back.
Back.
If you're lucky,
yeah.
They are
give us
completely
a Jersey salute
oblivious
if
to
you're
the
unlucky.
fact that it is a law to stop.
Barbara put out buckets of flags, remember?
Yep.
That worked apparently not too bad.
Well, a lot of the residents didn't like that. And it,
On the other
but it works very well in a small town in Rhode Island, because I saw it in action. I actually participated in it.
That's right, that's where you saw it.
That's where I saw it, yeah. Mhm. But anyway,
And our little sidewalk on Main Street by the old town hall, we did have a pedestrian sidewalk sign in the middle of the road,
mhm.
kind of make it look better. Somebody did hit it coming south and dragged it down to Lebanon's
Yeah.
and kept going.
What morning was it?
So-
That was Sunday morning.
Of course they did.
Coming from church probably, you know.
Yeah, it was all over.
They will go back up. In fact, we have to order another one because that one got really beat up. They'll go back in the spring.
Behaviors, I don't know, if I heard something before, although that now there's these cameras doing enforcement. And that has raised people's aggravation. Because it's not tickets. So, you know, even when you do enforcement.
The state's giving money for cameras for towns.
Well,
and cities.
the guidance on doing that is pretty onerous. And you have to demonstrate that there is a history of crashes and of speeding in certain slow zones. So it's not the easiest thing to implement. And there's going to be a lot of work on the part of the town to demonstrate that it's going to be effective, and then you have to maintain it, and then you have to, you know, do studies to show that it has been effective. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the speed cameras, although I can see where they'd be useful in certain areas. I think red light running cameras are a no-brainer. Because they have been shown to be effective in changing, behavior at red lights because, the camera won't lie. You go through on a red light, it will send a notice to you that you were caught. And,
Does that go to the town or the state? Because we could put our whole budget into order.
well, that's the thing, that you can't use it for revenue generation. It's for enforcement. But I mean, some states have done it. I'm trying to think, I think Maryland did it. It was pretty effective. And the way they did it, it's not a, it's an infraction, not a violation, or the other way. It's a less, it doesn't add points to your license. It just says, look, you went through this, it's a $50 fine, pay it, and don't do it again.
Raise your insurance bill.
Right. But, and then they put up the signs that say this location is controlled by a camera, and people will see that. And I always remember an old cartoon. It's like, isn't, doing radar and, these things. No, we just spent money on the sign.
I just say, there's a road in South Norwalk that goes to the beach. And it's a divided road, and the kids use it as a raceway. They time each other.
Yeah.
So one side is obviously going the wrong way, but they drag race. The solution was for the police department to get one of its old cars that was no longer functioning and park it there. It parked there for 3 or 4 days, and the speed would drop right up. They carted it away, and then
Speed went
a
right
month
back up.
later, they'd get another car. They'd be parking on the side of the road, and the speed would go down.
And that's always the problem with enforcement. I'm sure you've seen it. It's like you can go out there and do, check speed, and the speeds will go down as the enforcement, is there.
People get used to it.
And then, but then when the enforcement goes away, they'll go back up. That's why I think red light running cameras are good. I haven't been convinced with the speed cameras, but they're working on me. But yeah, that is I mean, and if the town is interested in doing anything like that, let us know, because we're available to help you through that process.
And another really creative thing that I came across in Darien was that there was a cut through, rather like Mountain Road, and a couple of the parents got a little red plastic tricycle and put it in the side of the road. Everybody slows down.
Yeah. But we're trying to do some of that without, to make those visual cues to let people know that there are others in this area to, slow down. So that's one of the intents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The
key to these projects.
I would think though also the more vibrancy of.
Don't fix the potholes.
Yeah.
Help a lot more. Changing behavior.
Right.
If more people want to come, more people will walk. It's more dynamic, it's more animated. So I mean, that's what we're really striving for. To start that in.
Absolutely. Again, that's the intent. So hopefully we'll be successful. And I think, part of the success, I think, it is the involvement of the town. I think you've demonstrated your willingness to participate and really be, committed to the project. So I think, that helps our success going forward. So absolutely. Thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it.
Coming and kicking it off.
What are the next steps or the schedule for this?
Oh, let me put, can I show you on my screen? Yeah, so, we think we're gonna do the road safety audit.
Oh, I thought you had an actual date. I know I saw